Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where today I think we might have a treat for you. This puzzle has been sent to us by a viewer, Axel, who compiles under the name Dubax, and it's a sandwich Sudoku with a little bit of a twist that's relevant for the channel. So Axel's been watching the channel and he noticed that our music at the introduction is Mozart's Sonata number 15, and so he thought it might be interesting to compile a sandwich Sudoku in which Mozart's birthday and death date are needed for the solve. So let me explain how this is going to work. Somewhere in this grid we need to put downwards diagonally the year of Mozart's birth, which was 1756. So it could go, I guess, something like this. Like this. And we also need to put the year of his death, which was 1791. And again, it must go downwards diagonally. The one wouldn't be in the same column. So, oops, and it wouldn't go off the edge of the grid. So I'm picking the wrong places to put this here. Let's put it there. So that would be a valid arrangement that we could see in the finished solution. That's all we get. So you can see there are absolutely no given digits in this puzzle. Now, I'm also going to let you in on a secret. Mark found this very, very difficult. So he's passed it on to me and wished me luck. So I don't know how long the video will be. So forgive me if it does turn into a long one. Obviously, though, Mark and I are both relatively au fait with Sandwich Sudoku, given that we've got our app out at the moment. Do take a look at that if you haven't seen it. We're very proud of it, and it has got really, really good reviews on Steam, the App Store, and on Google Play. So now, let's think about how to do the puzzle. So Sandwich Sudoku, remember what these numbers outside the grid are telling us is the sum of the cells sandwiched between the 1 and the 9. In each of the rows and columns. So, right, the first place I'll look is this 29. And as usual, with difficult sandwich Sudoku, we need to focus on cells that cannot contain the numbers 1 and 9. So, none of these cells in the center here can have a 1 or a 9 in them, because if I try and put a 1 or a 9, for example, in this cell, then the furthest away I could put the other 1 or 9 would be this cell. But that means that we would have to make cells summing 29 in these 4 cells. That's impossible. You can add up 8, 7, 6 and 5 if you like, but you won't get, you'll get to 26, you won't get to 29. So all of that means that all of these cells must be green. And a little trick for Sandwich Sudoku is any number that's greater than 22 cannot have a 1 or a 9 in its central position. So this 24 tells us that that square is not a 1 or a 9. Again, if we put a 1 or a 9 here, the furthest away we could put the other 1 or a 9 would be right on the edge. But 3 cells in a sandwich Sudoku, where you've got the 1 and the 9 outside of those 3 cells, so we can only use 8, 7 and 6. 8, 7 and 6 sum to 21. So it's a more advanced tip, but the more sandwiches Sudokus you do, the more you might use that. So again, we've got 25 and 24 here, so we're going to be able to put green cells in the middle of those rows. Now this 0 obviously means there's no gap between the 1 and the 9, so we can't have a 1 or a 9 here, because that would imply the 1 or the 9 would be next to it, which it can't be. And ditto, we can't have 1 for the same reason in this square. So we've now got sort of mirrored T shape in the grid. Okay. Now interesting, this cell is interesting because of the 0 total. So obviously if I put if this cell is a 1 or a 9, let's make 1s and 9s reds. We'll have 2 1s and 9s like this. Now that's a massive issue, actually, because now look what happens to the rest of this block. It all becomes green, but we've got a 24 and a 25 sum here. So this 24 row is absolutely broken now, because I can't possibly get 24 in between in these two cells. So this square is green, and for the same reason this square is green, because that would just force a red cell here, which gives us the same problem in this row. So there's definitely there must be a 1 or a 9 in one of these squares. And we've got a similar type of problem with this 24 and this 0. Because if this square is a 0, let's make this one a 0, then that one's going to be a 0. So now look what happens here. We can't have all of those squares are going to have to be green. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. And therefore, how are we going to make this 24 square work? And the answer, the only way this 24 square is going to work is if these two squares are red. And that's a problem, isn't it? Now this 25 is broken, because this square is now green, obviously, because we've got 24, so this is going to actually be the red one. And that means that I'm going to have to put a 1 or a 9 along the blue squares here. So I've now got a 1 or a 9 necessary along the blue squares, a 1 or a 9 necessary along the 24 squares, and also this one is red. So I've got 3 1s and 9s in this block. So there is a similar problem here, down here. And that logic applies actually for both of these squares, doesn't it? Because it's the same problem if I make both of these squares 1s and 9s. It's exactly the same. Yeah. So so there are not 2 red cells in this block. Now that's massive, because that means that the only place I can make this 0 work is those 2 squares. So these 2 squares are 1 and 9. I'm going to actually switch to 1s and 9s now. Now obviously we can put some more highlighting in. Because of this 0 here, we know that the other 1 or a 9 will either be here or here. There's going to have to be 2 squares away from this 1 and 9 to make the 11 total. Now let's have a look. Okay, so now we need 2 1s and 9s in this 3 by 3, so there's going to have to be 1 in the blue squares there. So there is definitely no 1s and 9s in those squares. We've got a similar type of thing going on this side. Let's just change the colours round. Now, what next, you might well ask. Let me stare at this for a moment. 9. So these two. I don't know. I'm not sure these could both be 1s and 9s, because in that position, if you look at 25 and 24 total, the outies, the outside squares from the sums, have to add up to 10 for this row and 11 for this row. Well, 10 would require 2 digits, 11 would require 2 digits. So if there was a 1 and a 9 in both of those squares, there would have to be a 1 or a 9 in both of those squares as well, and that breaks the 11 total. So there's definitely not a 1 or a 9 in this square. So this one we've managed to get down to 2 squares now. This square, that square obviously can't be a 1 or a 9 because of the 3 total. Because if I make this a 1 or a 9, I'd have to put the other one there, because this would go 1, 3, 9, or 9, 3, 1. But look, I've got a 0 total in the column, so there'd have to be another 1 or a 9 in one of those two squares, which is obviously impossible. That would leave 3 1s and 9s in the box. So that's green. Now this is a little trick for you. The moment this is green, this square cannot be a 1 or a 9, because if I make this square a 1 or a 9, either this square or this square has to be a 1 or a 9. So, is that useful? Well, yes, it is useful. This 0 total now, again, this square and this square cannot be 1s and 9s, because we need to have the next 1 and 9 next to them. So let me look. Now we can do. Yes, now we've got more tricks to do. Let's look at this column. We've got an 18 total. So the maximum numbers of 1s and 9s I can put in these 3 squares is 1. It's not possible for me to put a 1 9 here and a 1 9 here, because I'd have to put 18 in the middle of them. So there's only possibly 1 1 or a 9 in these 3 squares, but I need 2 1s and 9s for the 3 by 3 box. So that square is a 1 or a 9. And now this square and this square are both green. So 1 or a 9 in one of those 2 squares. No, there's not going to be though. Look at this. There's going to be a 1 or a 9 there, because this 7 can only be 2 squares maximum. We can't put 3 squares in, so this square is going to be the 1 or the 9 in the row, and that completes the 1s and 9s for this box. It means we can put more green cells in there. This can't be a 1 or a 9 now, because I can't make the 3 work. You can see the 3 is going to have to be here and here. These are green. This is a 1 or 9. This 18 requires 3 squares. So both of those are green, and therefore this square has to be a 1 or a 9. And therefore we've got 2 outies. We could have a maximum of 3 outies to make 11. So it's possible this square is a 1 or a 9. It's not possible this square is a 1 or a 9. 11 can only be 3 squares. So we've already got 3 green squares there. So that square must be a 1 or a 9. This 25 now is going to be forced. Yes, it's forced. This can't be a 1 or a 9. Obviously, actually, we've got 1s and 9s in this column already, so this is a 1 or a 9 here. Let's make that. That means this is a 1 or a 9, because it's a 0 total in the column. It's a good puzzle, this already, isn't it? It's not easy. I mean, this is one of the beauties of sandwich Sudoku, is that they really do stretch you. The harder ones are, it's a beautiful logic problem just to get the 1s and the 9s in. Right, this 29, obviously this square is going to have to be a 1 or a 9, otherwise we can't possibly fit the 1s and the 9s into the row. So there must be either 1 outie or 2 outies in 29, because 45, which will be the sum of the whole row, if we add all the numbers from 1 to 9, we get 45. Minus the 1 minus the 9 gives 35. Minus 29, which is what I need to have sandwiched between the 1 and the 9, gives 6. So how can I make 6? Well, this square could just be a 6. Or, if this square is a 1 or a 9, these 2 squares would have to add up to 6, which is also possible. The 24, though, that means that square is a 1 or a 9, doesn't it? And this is green. So this is a 1 or a 9. I think we're there now on 1s and 9s. This 9 total rules out that one. That 9 must be 3 cells. It can't be 4 cells, so this is a 1 or a 9. This 18, we need another 1 or a 9 in the block, so that fixes that. So, right, okay, so if we look at the two options for where the 1s and 9s can go in column 9, it's these two squares. We can't possibly have it here, it's far too many squares away. So that's a 1 or a 9. Let's make the colour correct. This is not a 1 or a 9. Ah, and look, that's why we weren't given this column total, because it would have been a 0, and that would have been really, you know, it's very powerful. Obviously 0 is such a useful total in sandwich Sudoku. That one's green. So that, I think, is the pattern. And we haven't used our Mozart yet. And in fact, we must use the Mozart now because we can't do anything. Well, that's not true. That's not true. We can. This 9 total must be 2, 3, and 4. Let's try that. See if that gets us anything. 11 can be 2, 3, 6 or 2, 4, 5. So we know there's a 2 along. We know this isn't a 2 because there's got to be a 2 in this 11 total. 3 we can write in. That's a digit. That might be helpful. 7 could be 2, 5 or 3, 4. This has 2 outies, therefore these are 2 and 4. We looked at that before. Well, I'm not really seeing. A lot of these totals are very difficult, actually. Oops. There must be a 2 in one of these 3 cells, but I think we have to use our numbers now. So we've got 1791 is the most obvious one to use because that has 3 1s and 9s in it. So I need a diagonal that has 3 1s and 9s in the right order. So we've got this one, those 3 squares. Let's colour them in. So that could work. 1, 7, 9, 1. Are there any others? Oh yes, there is. Look at that one. Oh bother. Maybe there's loads of them. There can't be loads of them. No, in fact there's 2. So is there a way of distinguishing between them? Let's just... Yeah, okay, so let's check this. So if this was a 1, that would be a 9, and that would be a 1. That would be a 1, that would be a 9. That looks correct. Okay. Bother. Let's check this one. So if this is 1790... Oh, well, that doesn't work. Unless I've made a mistake, that just doesn't work, because look, this being a 1 forces a 9 there, and therefore this is just broken. So that's probably what I needed to notice. I think that's right. I think that's right. So that means this is 1791 down here. Like that. Now, is that going to get us back off to the races again? Well, yeah, I suppose what it does allow us to do is unwind all of the 1s and the 9s. So let's do that first. 9, 1. I'm not actually sure it's going to be that helpful to do this, but it's certainly a step we need to go through in order to finish the puzzle. So let's do that. 9, 1, 9, 9, 1. Okay, so there we go. But we haven't really advanced the solve. We've got this 7 in the grid. Doesn't help. We're going to have to use the other one, which is what, 1756, isn't it? 1756. So that's only got... So this one can't be, look, because that's going to hit a 9 if it comes this way. So let's actually... This one could be... I'll colour in that one. Could come this way. This one can't be. This one can't be. Okay. Oh, this one can be, because it could come this way. So that's possible as well. Goodness me, this is very complicated. Right, okay, so what is wrong? 1, 7, 5, 6. Can't see what's wrong with that one. Let's just have a look at this one. 7, 5, 6. Ah, yeah, there you go. Okay, so if this is a 7, look, we've got a 24 total. So the outies in this column, these three squares, we know have to sum up to 11, because 45 minus 1 minus 9 minus 24 is equal to 11. So these three squares sum to 11. So if I put a 7 into one of them, these two squares have to sum up to 4. Well, that's absolutely broken, because I would need to use a 1, and I've already got a 1 in the column. Goodness me, this is brilliant. I mean, this is absolutely brilliant design. 1756. So now there's a 7 up there. Make some notes now. 5 here. The outies here add up to 10. That's not much use. The outies here add up to 11 without now using 2, 9 or 5, 6. So these two squares are either 4, 7 or 3, 8. Let's put that in. 6. It's interesting, actually, to me anyway, that this 1756 hasn't really, I mean, maybe I'm being a bit slow here. This 5, there's no 5 in those two squares, so there must be a 5 along there. And therefore, there must be a 5 along here. I know there's a 2 in one of these three squares. Goodness me. This can be 2, 5 or 3, 4. I can't see how to definitely rule one of those options out. What am I missing here? Yeah, sorry about this. This is a bit of a conundrum. $11. 2, 3, 6 and 2, 4, 5 are both possible. So that's going to resolve this square. There must be a 2 in one of these two squares. That means there's no 2 in these three squares. Whoa, what am I missing here? Sorry about this. This is a bit of a hiccup. 29, 2, 4. So the options for this square, what are the options for this square? If this can't, because we've got 5 digits effectively in this row. So this can be 3, 5, 6 or 8, I think. And this 18 here, so 18, 28, 35, these two squares sum up to 10 without using a 7 or a 9. So these squares are either 2, 8 or 4, 6. 6 or 8. And this square, what are the options for this square now? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So this square is 5, 6 or 8 as well. 5, 6 or 8. So we can't. So now, look at that. There's a 3 in one of those two positions. That means there's a 3 in one of these two positions. Right, okay. And now look, we've got a 12 total here. So if I put a 3 here, that would be a 9. That's not possible. This is the 3. Okay. Oh, is that helpful? Hopefully. 3 in one of these two squares. Yeah, okay, so now I can use this outie. That's going to give me a 7 here, because the outies in this row have to add up to 10. That means there's a 7 in one of these two positions. This 6 means there's a 6 in one of those two squares. There's a 6 in one of these three squares. We know it can't be here because that would lead to 2 6s. So the 6s are in one of those two squares. So 8. I feel like I keep going round in circles in my mind. That's never a good sign when you're solving Sudoku. So okay, right, I've got it. Look, we've now got a 5 in here and a 7 in here. So this square cannot be a 5 or a 7, and it can't be a 3 or a 9. So this is a 4 or an 8. Oh, goodness me, that was a trial. That means this isn't a 7, obviously. This is the 7. This is a 4 or an 8. And that's going to be massive now. So now that gives us a 2 here, which rules out 2, 8 as the option for this 10 sum. This must be a 6. This is a 4. This is that must be a 5. It's the only place a 5 can go in the column. This is not a 5, therefore, and it's not a 6. This is a 3. This is an 8. So this must be 6 and 8 as well as 7 here. And neither of these squares is a 3. What a puzzle. This is a 4. Therefore this is not a 4. Therefore this is not a 7. Okay. So what now? 6, 7, 8. So I need 2, 3 and 5 into these squares. So this is obviously a 2 up here now in one of these two positions. 4, 3, okay. These add up to 11, so there must be a 2 in one of these positions. It's either 2, 4, 5 or 2, 3, 6. know the 6 in this block is either in this square or in this square. I need to put an 8 into one of those two positions because of the row. Sevens, are they interesting? Maybe, but I'm not quite seeing how. Ah, this 3 forces this, look. This now, this 11 total must be 2, 4, 5, so the 6 has moved over. Okay. This, no, this one could still be 5, but at least we know now this is 2, 4, and 5. So this square here must be a 6. 2, 5, 8 here. Oops. 2, 4, 5. Now, is this 6 helpful? No. Well, not very helpful anyway. Right, we're going to have to spot somewhere else to look, I think, because we've used this 11, we've used this 12, we don't know anything about this column, anything about this column, anything about this column. We know these add up to 11, but we don't know whether it's 2, 4, 5 or 2, 3, 6. What else do we know? This 18 we've used, this 29 we've used, this 9 we've used, this we've used. Think. Oh, hang on. Yes, there's something. We know there's a 7 in this summation here because we did the logic earlier. There isn't a 7 here is the way of thinking about it. So there's a 7 in one of those two squares. So that's got to be a 7. That means there's a 7 down there somewhere. Now that means that this is not 4, 7 into these squares, isn't it? This must be 3 and 8. So let's put that in. This is not 8, therefore over here. Therefore this is 8 because I need to put an 8 in the block. Now that means this is a 4. This is not a 4. 2, 5, 8 into those squares. 8. Now there's an 8 in one of these two positions. Now look, these 8s marry up in terms of the columns here. So we know the 8s will either be in those squares or in those squares. There's a little X-wing of 8s here. So there must be an 8 in one of those squares down there. Oh, and we've got 7s as well, pointing into the same place. There's a 7, 8 pair in this block. So we still need 2, 3, 4, 6. Ah, yeah, okay, this 6 now matters, doesn't it? Because the 6 is forced over to this side. So this 11 total becomes 2, 3, 6. Ah, that's massive, I think. This is not 6 now. 6 is here. 6. This is not 3, I want to say that. This is not 6. These two squares should be 4 and 5, which I can't resolve. But that does give me the 2 and the 4 at the top. 4, this must be a 4 now. This is an 8, therefore this is an 8, therefore this is a 3. And this is a 5. And this is a 3. Neither of these are 3s. And we're looking to put 2 into these squares. Let's do that. Let's put the 2s in. You can see the 2s now marry up. So there must be a 2 in one of those squares. I'm not sure that's going to be massively helpful though. Must be a 2 and a 3 into these two positions as well. and the 3's resolve the order. So 2, 3, like that. 6. We need a 4 to those squares. This is not a 4. I feel like my brain has been put through the ringer, I have to say. Like, this is properly difficult. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant to construct this. But yeah, I'm going to need the weekend to rest, I think. So that's a 5. 2 8 pair now. 5 here. So if we used all of the totals, we haven't used this 18 total yet. And this 11 total I've not used either. And if you look at this square can't be a 2, because that would put a 9 there. If there's a 3 there, that would put an 8 into this position. And if there was a 6, it would put a 5. So that does resolve this. This is a 3, this is an 8, this must be a 2, this is a 6. That resolves the 2 and the 8 over on this side. Look, the 8 and the 7 are resolved. Now hopefully that means that we can place a 2 here for starters. It should be a 6. This 7 is now resolved. This must be 2, 5, look. So this is 5 and 7 into these 2 squares. This is not 2. And this should be 3 and 4, which is resolvable. Fantastic. 4 and 3 like that. Now maybe, well, that gives us a 3 and the 8 before we go any further. This square now must be 7. Let's remove the 7s. This one must be 8. This is 6. This is 6. This is 2. This is 2. This is 5. This is 5. This is 7. Don't make a mistake, Simon. That would be bad. 5, 4. I think that is the solution. Let's... Oh, it doesn't look right. I've obviously messed something up. What have I messed up? Oh, just one digit. That's going to be a 7. Let me check. Let me correct it. Hang on a second. 7. Check. There we go. So that, I think, is the solution. And what a puzzle. 37 minutes, one of our longest videos on the Sudoku, but I make no excuses. There were a few pauses in there, but as I say, my brain feels like it's been completely decimated, frankly, by Dubax's puzzle. This was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much for sending it to us. Let us know in the comments how you found it, and if you found it simple or found a better way to solve it. It'd be very interesting to know. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoy the content. Back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.